Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL for 5% off your order. We're also sponsored by Quiver Time, makers of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine card holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their site for 10% off your purchase. And by Architect, a deck hosting website that doesn't sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them for all your deck list needs. Now, on to the show. Hello, and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., Quiver Time, and Architect. Today, I have a very special guest, cEDH double champion and eternal legacy, contenty dude, and end boss at a lot of these, sort of big legacy and vintagey type tournaments. BoshNRoll, who is, I got to hang out with you in Richmond, I think it was.
We played a lot of casual EDH, which, despite my resume, is a big thing that I like to do.
Yeah, it was super weird to me because I was hanging out with you and we were chatting and stuff. And then later on, I'm like, oh, this guy's the cutthroat killer of cEDH. What? Oh, man. Cool. Well, it's great to have you on the show. I'm a big fan. I like watching you play. And I know you were just recently in Eternal Weekend in Europe. Didn't you fly out there to try to grind legacy and stuff?
I did, yeah. Eternal Weekend, that's my Super Bowl every year. It's one of these events that is not on the radar of most Magic players, but it's the most important event to the people it's targeted at. And there's one in Europe, one in Japan, and one in America every year. And I got out to Europe in 2019, and then I got out to Europe this year. I've been to all the America ones. I have yet to go to Japan, but I'm trying to change that this coming year.
I'm trying to think of just how insanely difficult it would be to play a vintage or legacy tournament in Japanese. Japanese, I can speak Japanese pretty well, but I don't speak Japanese Magic. And Magic terminology is, I guess let me correct myself, because when you're playing vintage enough to want to go to an Eternal Weekend, you know the meta, you know the format, you know your decks, and the decks work the same. You know what a Rexer deck looks like, you know what a Workshops deck looks like. And I guess it's harder now because every card's got 38 different alters and editions and whatever, but it's a legacy deck's a legacy deck. You know what High Tide does.
Yeah, really, unless you get into one of these really interesting situations where it's I'm going to cast a Brainstorm, which triggers 2 Surveils on my 2 Dragon's Rage Channelers. And then after the first Surveil, but before the second, I'm going to Lightning Bolt your creature, creating 2 more Surveils. That might be difficult to navigate if you don't share a language. But in general, Lightning Bolt your creature still plays.
To be fair, that's difficult to navigate if you do share a language.
Right.
I'm just trying to follow that. Oh, God, I hate everything about this. This is why I play Elves, man. I take one turn and I either win or lose, and we're done.
I'm a big Elf fan. I've actually had Elves foiled out since 2007, and I don't play the deck anymore. But I keep it in my closet, and when new cards come out, like Allosaurus Shepherd got a foil predict, I make sure I have them. But this is one of those things where I have my Star City Games receipt. I saved in my phone, actually, for when I need to pick me up, of my foil cradles. They cost me $60.
What the hell? What the hell?
Yeah, the perks of just being around for a long time. These things add up. We lost Shivam, everybody.
What the hell? No, that's not okay. What? Oh my God. Okay.
Yep.
So one of my biggest fish lost off the hook stories or whatever, at GP Vegas some years ago, there was an Italian booth there, and they were selling cradles for $65 each or $75, and the American cradles were going for $150 or whatever. And I was like, and I hemmed and hawed, and I didn't, because they were kind of a little bit beat up ish or whatever. And I guess I had standards or something. Short of when my cards as a child got lost, or got stolen out of my brother's backpack, that might be the biggest. I can't believe I didn't just buy them on the spot right then and there.
Yeah, we just didn't know back then.
No, we didn't.
I had a bunch of I'm friends with a local game store owner who will occasionally message me when he has something kind of high end because he knows I like that stuff.
Mm.
He'll give me a price that's better than he would put in the case, but more than he paid for it, and we just have this little
Well, yeah.
handshake thing.
I mean,
And
that's the upside of having an ally at
yes,
your LGS, right? Like
absolutely.
my store owner knows exactly what I want and knows that I'm always going to come in and buy these two things and this box and that box, whatever. They're always set aside for me and the promos and stuff. It's just easy peasy because when you're a regular at your store, folks, go to your LGS, make friends with the owner, and make friends with all the people there, become part of the community, and then you get perks. It's the whole point. It's the reason
Yes,
we do this.
absolutely.
Like I'm willing to pay a little bit more for the guaranteed satisfaction of A, knowing that I'm helping my store, and B, knowing that he's gonna get my back when I need it.
That's
And I
right.
mean,
Yep.
but you can still go to hell and die.
Whoa, harsh. Let's not talk about where I got my power then. If that's how you feel about Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, dude. Like sometimes folks are like, they look at my decks and they're like, oh my god, you got all these true duels in it. I'm like, yeah, you know how much they cost me? And they're like, how much? I'm like, $3.95 plus tax, because
Yep.
that's how much a revised booster pack cost in 1994 when I opened it. So, um, yeah,
Yep. I missed that window. I did not open any packs of Revised. I started when Tempest was about to come out. So, tail end of Weatherlight Block. Tempest is about to be the new
yeah,
set. That's when I started the game. But
lots of sliver queens at least.
yeah, there's actually one on my bookshelf right behind me. Probably too small to see, but there's a Sliver Queen just sitting there.
I can see your oversized Black Lotus. I also have one. You know what's actually really sick? A friend of mine was digging through his random stash of stuff and found an old sealed Inquest that still had the Lotus in the thingy,
That's sick.
in the paper. And I was just like, I will give you $100 for that right now. And he's like, for this, I'm like, yes, here is money. Yes. And so I have it. Actually, either the Lotus or the Shivan Dragon, I don't remember. But the point is more like, oh my god, I haven't seen one sealed in blister bag in the original manufacturer's bag since I literally got it in the mail.
Yep, same. I had subscriptions to Scry and Inquest as a child. They just came to my house every week, and I would cut out like the funny pictures in there because they would put word bubbles on
Yeah.
magic characters and stuff and make jokes. And I just cut those out and made like a little scrapbook or stuck them on the walls of my room.
Yes.
And that's what everyone did. Why would there still
Yeah.
be a sealed blister pack
Yeah.
Black Lotus?
Seriously.
Why would that exist?
Like that's exactly the thing. It's like I did that with Nintendo Power. I did that with Inquest. I used to like cut the pictures out and hang them on the wall. So when you find like a mint in bag, you're like, what? How did this even happen? Did you just forget to open it? What do you like? What's going on?
Yeah,
Um,
the kid must have gone to college and it just came to the house and mom threw it in a closet because she doesn't
right.
care like that.
Seriously, it's wild. But the other thing is like bringing up old Inquest just reminds me of like the dumbest write-in letter I'd ever seen in my life, which was like my opponent and I were playing a game, and mid-game he twiddled his bone flute, and I'm like, and I was like 11 or 12 when I read that, and I'm like, twiddled your bone flute? I'm like, tapping that like bone flute just give -1, -0 to all creatures. Tapping it doesn't do anything. Why would you twiddle your bone flute? And then like 30 years later, I'm like, oh my god, what is that joke?
Yeah, that was sent to the Inquest forum
Yeah.
area of the back of the magazine.
You'll never believe what happened. Oh my god. That's a flashback to a time. So, the reason I wanted to talk to you though is because you are a content creator yourself. You do a lot of like eternal formatty stuff. Um how but you also like actually I should back that up. What I really want to talk to you about is how you ended up winning cEDH tournaments. How did you get into cEDH and like just collapse on them like a truck? I've noticed like have you noticed like a lot of eternal players kind of turning to like a competitive commander sort of?
I found that there's mostly two camps where when you present cEDH and what it's about to eternal players. There's the
Mm,
people who are like, yes, I like high power magic, and this seems like a fun way to build out my repertoire
mm,
of ways to do that. And there are those who say, why would I want to play against three people? That sounds miserable. Because like when you're hanging out, beer and pretzels, EDH, the more the merrier. 8-person
Yeah,
pod.
right.
Let's just run it. We'll be here all night playing one game. It's fine. No, there's nothing on the line. But if you are coming from the mindset of me versus you, with prizes on the line, may the better gamer win, adding two more humans to that, where there's like the politics of, if these three people decide you're not going to win, then that's tough. And then,
Mm.
or there's the other one where, if three people kind of get what's going on and one doesn't, and they're taking game actions at random and
And
actively
just
undermining.
misplaying and yeah.
Right. And that's all part of the game, which it does take, just like playing vintage takes getting your mind around the idea of getting vintaged. Like sometimes you keep a hand that looks pretty good and your opponent's like
Turn
Black
0,
Lotus.
GG's.
Yeah, right. Just like Black Lotus, Narset, Time Twister, you don't have a hand anymore. And then they still like, you have to be able to be okay with that if you agree to play vintage. And
Yeah.
same with cEDH. Sometimes you lose on turn one. Sometimes you have an awesome 2.5 hour game. And sometimes someone at the table doesn't know what's going on. And it's actually worse than having an empty seat, having them there.
That is one of the things I've come to harp on over the past year or so, is like, because when I started playing Commander and stuff, I had the mentality of like, all competitive players are bad, all cEDH and stuff, they're all just pup stompers here to ruin our day. And over the years, I realized that no, it's not just the competitive players who are bad and that we're good and they're here to ruin us. It's who is the majority at the table. The person who is not in sync with the rest of the table needs to either like, come to play properly or find themselves a different place to be at, or everybody's going to have a ruined experience. Being the one casual guy at a table full of competitive players is not any more fun than being the one competitive player at a table full of casuals, right? Like, that's not going to give a good experience to anybody.
Yeah, I've heard your story about you like sitting down at the LGS, and the other ones were like, we're kind of high power, and you're like, it's fine, I'll play soldiers or whatever.
Yes,
And
exactly that.
at the end of the night, you realized that you were the one causing
No,
trouble.
it took me like almost 5 years to realize that I
Okay.
was a bad one. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
look at these people playing such terrible Magic. How heinous of them. And I'm like, oh my God, I sat down. Like later on, after like years of reflection, I was like, oh no, I was the one who ruined their evening.
Right.
Like,
Right. And like this whole divide of casual versus competitive,
is it
tournament versus non, it's all in the minds of people. Like it, it doesn't really exist outside of Twitter drama.
right?
You definitely feel it when you're in a pod where someone's doing something way higher or way lower than you are, and it can affect the experience.
Yeah.
But that isn't like a competitive player versus casual player problem. It's a, this pod didn't figure out where they need to be problem.
Exactly that. And like, that's not to say that there aren't people out there who won't like misrepresent their decks. Like, if you go to an LGS and play with strangers, chances are somebody there, I mean, there's a possibility that they're just going to be lying to you, right? Because one of the things that Olivia Gober Hicks has said many times is that rule 0 is for game 2. It's like you can't really do much for game 1. You sit down with a pod full of strangers and you just take their word for it that we're all on like good faith and on equal benefits. And then game 2 is where we sit there and go like, okay, you know what? I would prefer you didn't play with that deck, or hey, I get what's going on now. Let me grab this other deck and let's actually aim for a better, more fun experience. But just don't be that way, people. Don't be the person who goes there to be a dream crusher. It's like, that's, if you want to win, go play like Chandelar and kick the crap out of the AI. It's fine. They won't cry about it.
Yep. And in terms of defining these troublemakers as competitive players, I will tell you, from coming from a background of competitive players are not at the LGS for casual commander night.
No, they're
That
not.
is a casual player who has a deck that's too powerful and wants to do something cool. That doesn't mean they're
Yes.
a tournament spike on the weekends. That
Well,
is not who that is.
it's like the LaVine Trench that showed up on Twitter, where they sit there and they're like, "You're really, really cool. You're super try hard. You're really, really cool again." And a lot of those people. Hang on, I've got to look it up because it's one of my favorite. Uh, it's one of my favorite images. Yeah, the LaVine Trench is basically like, on the vertical axis, there's the nicest, from very nice to average to kind of a D bag to a total misanthrope, and then like the skill tier is the horizontal axis where it's like bad, mediocre, almost good. Like, you can make like, you can win a couple PTQs or whatever, day two of GP, and then actually good. And you see, like, on the niceness scale, the bad players and the actually good players, really kind, really generous, really friendly people. The guys who are like the day two grinders or like the FNM champion or whatever, those are the ones who go straight into like just craptown territory of like, come on, man. Like, this.
Yeah. One of my friends a week or two ago posted a graph that he just scribbled real quick where it's like uh, magic skill versus how much fun magic is for you. And basically the punchline was the how much fun line goes way down once you get really good at the game. And my rebuttal was the the axis should not be how good you are, but how much money you're making playing Magic. If the answer is $0, you're having a lot of fun. If the answer is a few dollars, you're having no fun. If the answer is many dollars, you're having a lot of fun again.
Yes.
And if you are unsuccessfully monetizing your hobby, you're going to be a miserable sob to be around.
Miserable. It is
Yes.
the worst feeling. Like, you can even see, there's like famous streamers out there who have, you can visibly see because they're streaming every day. Like, there's like times when, like, in the beginning they're like super peppy and happy and energetic and having a great time, and then suddenly it's just like they didn't make their taxes this quarter, and suddenly it's just like misery. And I'm like, oh my god, okay, like, it's very hard to kind of climb out of those troughs that you're in. But I think you're exactly right. It's like your investment in Magic and your enjoyment of Magic are definitely like peaked when they're at their highest and lowest, and absolutely miserable in that middle space.
Yes, the idea of paying to participate in a hobby is just how hobbies work. Those people with no expectation of getting money back are living on cloud nine. This is what we're
Yeah.
here to do. What do you mean? And then like you win an F and M and you turn your $5 into 15 or whatever, and suddenly you have a taste, and then you top eight a regional PTQ and you win 3 boxes for top four or something, and you're like, wait, this almost paid for the trip. And that person is in trouble for a while. And then the dirty secret that has come to light in the last few years is that climbing out of that crevice on the other side, making real money, playing Magic as a career, exists for close to nobody.
Yeah. If your name is LSV or Reed, you are there. If your name isn't, hope you have a nice
Right.
job on the side, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of wild because that's one of the things that I think has really enhanced my enjoyment of Magic is understanding that my, like, when I pay in for the game to buy cards or to play arena or whatever, I'm getting my money's worth by the experience that I'm doing and enjoying myself. Like, I did that, they had the chaos draft, like 9 packs and then win the festival in a box or whatever. Chaos draft is like my favorite way to play, and I love doing it. And I just got shellacked. I tried like 3 separate times and spent a lot of gems on buying this, like $50 or $25, whatever amount of money that was in gems. And I got crushed every single time. And I was the guy who's basically feeding all the sharks who were going to go and win the boxes. And people are just very cynical. They're like, dude, don't you understand? You're just throwing money away. You're just like giving these guys prizes for free. I'm like, no, I am paying money to have a really fun 3 or 4 hours of my day getting to play one of my favorite formats of Magic. Win or lose is not really the goal here. It's like when I rent a movie, I'm not worried that I won the movie, right? Like, I
Right.
saw the movie, I got the enjoyment out of the movie. I'm done. That was a good use of my time. Um,
Yeah, I recently, my friend Phil Gallagher, Thraben, who's been on your show,
like him a lot.
I heard him use the term "they're on vacation" one time when we were. It was actually the day before a cEDH tournament, and we were trying to
Mm,
get some serious reps in on site, and
mm.
we ended up sitting down with 2 people who were like, "Yeah, we're free for a game." And they were the person who I said earlier didn't quite know what was going on, making the experience actively worse for the people trying to be serious. And as we, thanks for the game, guys. We're gonna go mix it up a little bit. We weren't rude to them, but Phil was like, "Yeah, they're on vacation,"
Mm,
and I thought that was an eloquent way to say this person is unserious about winning the tournament,
yeah.
and it's okay to be present and spend your money, spend your entry fee, travel to whatever city we're in, and just play and go
For the
0 and
experience
7
of
in the
being
tournament,
there, right?
but you got
Exactly.
7 games in with new
Right.
people. That is okay to be on vacation, and it's also okay to not be on vacation.
Yeah. I mean, like traveling to a GP, traveling to a Magic Con to go play in these events is sometimes the experience in itself. You never like when I came back from Minnesota, I was in the plane with, or no, I was coming back from Vegas, I think. I was in the plane with a dude who is like a local from this area who, he didn't know anything about like my podcast or content or anything like that. He was just like a cop who was like, I played Magic. I got back into it with the other guys of the Force, and I wanted to go try myself out at this tournament thing. And he was like, dude, did you know we have to sit for like 7 rounds and we don't get to do it? And I'm like, wait, your first tournament ever was going to like play in a PTQ against, or like playing basically like the PTQ against the people who washed out of the pro tour, because he was sitting there
Right.
and he's like, yeah, some of these dudes who were in like team uniforms or whatever saw me playing, and later on they invited me to come hang out and they wanted to play for money. And I was like, oh my God, you were going to get so fleeced. But he was like, he was totally game. He was like, look, it's Vegas. I knew I was going to lose money. I was going here for the experience and to understand what it's like and to just have this taste. And if I got wrecked, well, I still really enjoyed myself within the budget I had expected to lose or spend. And I'm like, that is such a healthy way to do. Like, a lot of people would have been like, yo, I went to Vegas, I got shellacked, and then these people fleeced me for my money, and it would have been miserable. And this dude was just like, that was rad. It's like I got to go and just really enjoy what the Magic life was like. I'm like, that's such a healthy way to look at it.
Yeah, the Magic Con circuit and the SCG Con circuit for the last year have been really illuminating for me because I judged for 12 years.
Oh, geez.
I judged. I was a PTQ staple judge, head judging PTQs sometimes, judging the SCG circuit. I judged the Pro Tour. Like I was a judge for a very long time. That's how I was able
Judge
to.
much?
Yeah, right. I did. So that's how I showed up to these events at at cost. Like I got paid for judging, and I could hang out with my friends who were losing in the tournament and losing all their money, and I got to stay abreast of it that way. And then I kind of pivoted hard in like 2016 into suddenly playing tournaments and winning them, and I was on that trajectory for a long time. And then, COVID, and then the con circuit, where it's not really about winning a tournament. That's not the
Mm.
central event that's occurring.
It's not
Like
even
the
the side event. It's like the sidest side event.
right. I actually forgot the Pro Tour was happening at 2 of the 3 cons this year. Like Philly, it was on a totally different
It was
room, totally different building.
they put it in Mars when we were at Philly. It was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
far away.
In Minneapolis, it was at like the back of the content creator room, so I was aware it was back there, but I was kind of surprised every time I was reminded of it. Like it's just such a side event
It's
at
so
the
great.
main con, and it's really reshaped my thinking about showing up at these things and what you can get out of it, other than
Mm.
just your money back.
Well, yeah. Well, what do you think? Like, what do you think about like the con event in terms of just from your perspective as somebody who's mainly been a comp player?
So it's I don't think that if I was not a full-time content creator, I would make an effort to get to the ones that are far away.
Mm,
I live in Pennsylvania. Philly's driving distance is that one I would have been at no matter what.
sure,
But I don't know that I would fly to Minneapolis for if I was like I get in on the creator badge. I have the creator booth for an hour. I get to meet people. I'm handing out my business cards, signing stuff
sure,
for people. That's that's what I'm really doing there. That's my business proposition. Um, uh,
pretty much.
as far as just hanging out for 4 days playing Commander, I don't think I would spend con money to do that. But I wouldn't fault anyone who would, because
Yeah,
that is who is keeping the lights on in those cons.
right. I mean, because like the idea, like for me to be able, like, and this is where I have to be a little egotistical for a second. I don't get to play at cons because if I sit down to try to play, people will flock, people will try to get signings, pictures, whatever, and it becomes a bad experience for the other 3 people that I'm sitting with. And just like I don't get to actually know what's going on in any way, shape, or form. But I go to those things because they're business for me, which is like meet and greets, signings, get people onto my podcast, or like just spread the awareness of of myself, right? And to do panels. I really just love doing panels. But if like when I was a fan, I would go to like a GP if it was a driving distance away. I don't know that I would have flown to Minneapolis to go to a con. I would have probably gone to Vegas because it's like an hour flight for me. Philly, probably not. Mini, probably not. Barcelona, definitely not. And I didn't go to Barcelona anyways because nobody is paying for me to be there. Um,
Same.
but if anybody wants to pay for me to be in Amsterdam, yeah. But anyways, that's not the point though. The point is, like, I know a bunch of people who do like go spend the like save their money, go with their buddies, rent a hotel room, and spend like the whole weekend playing Commander with, and like not just Commander, but like the Gavin draft or the unknown events and all the other random things. And I was like, that seemed weird until I realized when I was 20 something, I used to fly out to Gen Con, sleep on my friend's floor, and play D&D for like 4 days straight. And it's like, oh, well, it's just the same thing. It's just for Magic players instead. And
Right.
I
And
love it.
I will confess that historically, my friends, I have a bunch of friends who go to Gen Con every year. And every time they ask me, do you want to go to Gen Con this year? My answer is like, why would I want to spend all that money to play board games? And that is like
That's
the
literally all I want
mentality,
to do.
right? I mean, that's the mentality I had from someone who, as either a judge or player, was going to make money or could make money by
Mm,
going to the con for the thing that I like
right.
versus Gen Con, where the whole purpose is to extract as much money from you as they can, as the board game industry can. And that's fine. Like, there's cool stuff to do. Like, a bunch of my friends, they have like Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are them. Or, like, Yu-Gi-Oh just had a booth one year where you make a silly pose and then they print you on site onto like an actual backed Yu-Gi-Oh card.
That's
And
hot.
they have all sorts of cool stuff like that that they got at the con, and I'm jealous every time they pull it out. And it's like I'm kind of now understanding. Like, I did the Secret Lair scavenger hunt in Vegas, got the pin. I went got it by picture in front of the TARDIS, got a promo TARDIS card. They're just handing out cool stuff for free,
It's
and
so
you get to see
cool.
cool stuff. Cons actually rule, even if you're not making money for being there.
Exactly. Like
Yeah, preposterous.
once you stop the mentality of like, okay, am I gaining or losing money on this, and think about it more as I'm going to Disneyland. And you go with that mentality of I'm going to spend a lot of money and this is going to cost me a lot of money, but let me maximize my enjoyment. Then suddenly it becomes way, way cooler. Like I used to go to PAX every year with my wife because my wife and I are both board gamers. She doesn't play Magic because she's like, yeah, it's fiddly, but she knows how. But we love to go to PAX to go play board games with all of our friends. And one year at PAX, they were putting out like some Mickey Mouse, some Mickey Mouse game or something like that was coming out, and the studio got actual animators from Disney to come out, and if you waited in line, they would sketch you whatever you wanted. And so my wife and I went and camped out and waited like 10 hours in that line. And at the end of it, I got like a Goofy sketch and she got Stitch and Lilo, and they're hanging on our walls in frames. And it's like, I have actual official Disney art done by actual official Disney artists. That is never going to happen anywhere but at a con. I think is sweet, you know?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Um, But let's actually pull back a step because I realize I glossed over literally everything about you and jumped right into discussion. Because I see right behind you, you've got a gigantic poster of yourself as a token from SCG. Uh, I'm going to ask a dumb question. Did you win an SCG invitational?
Yes, I won an SCG Invitational. Those of you who are watching on video, I'm pointing. That is the poster size version of my monk token that I had made, the 1/1 prowess monk.
That's hot.
There's some other SCG trophies here. This is an actual Eternal Weekend painting. This is a hand painted painting, not a poster.
Did you
It's
win
Time Warp.
Eternal Weekend?
I did.
What?
Uh,
Wait, when the hell did that happen?
I won Vintage Champs in, I believe it was 2018.
Holy crap. How did
I
I
have
not know?
I have 6 Eternal Weekend top 8s with 1 win.
Oh my God.
Right. That's my Super Bowl. Like I said,
Oh, I love
this Mox Pearl under the Time Walk, that's for getting second place. That's a 1 of 1 canvas print. Unfortunately, it's
Jesus.
not the actual painting. My opponent walked away with that one. But
Well, that's what you get for winning, right?
yeah, the cool stuff on my walls. There's a lot of trophies back there that
God, man, have you ever thought about being good at this maybe? And like, then you could might win something real instead of just a print.
yeah, right. For what it's worth, the the Mox Pearl, the canvas print. I got enough store credit to buy an Ancestral Recall from that tournament, so
Oh,
I did okay. Don't worry, it wasn't just a print.
that's hot. Um, oh man, I really want to go to Eternal Weekend so badly because I love Legacy a lot. I really need to. I wish there were more opportunity for me to play Legacy because like Vintage, I love watching. I do not enjoy playing. Like Vintage is just I find too like it's a difference between EDH being casual kitchen table, like whatever cards I own dot deck, versus like cEDH being like everything is on the stack and the turn takes 45 minutes and we all pass priority and think about it. Like that's what I think about like Vintage is like the game might only be 5 rounds long, but those 5 rounds are going to take like an hour each.
I once
Well,
heard
they used
Vintage
to. No, it's
described
gotten
as like
slower.
the anime square off of like the two great samurai, where they kind of stare at each other
And
for
then
like
one
6
dies.
episodes, and then there's one flash of light, and then one of them's dead. And like that's kind of what a game of Vintage is. Not much happens usually, but it's a giant explosion once something does happen, and at the other end, someone's dead.
Yes, that is exactly what it is. Yes. Uh, goddamn. I was watching Eternal Weekend this weekend. Wasn't there somebody who won literally on turn one? Like there was a
Probably.
game where
Oh, that
one
was
person
me. uh, maybe it wasn't me, but in my top eight, I top eighted Vintage again this year, and
congrats.
uh, I went first in my top eight match, and my turn one play was Oath of Druids with Forbidden Orchard to give them a creature. So I get
Mm.
to trigger Oath of Druids to start my turn two. And I'm like, I'm in good shape here. And my opponent went Mishra's Workshop, Mox Opal, Time Vault, Voltaic Key, untap my Time Vault. And I did not get a turn two.
No, you certainly didn't.
No.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, I have to ask you a question though, because I've always been curious about the time vault and key combo. What is the win? Because generally people put out time vault and put out key, and then you're like, game's over. But nobody ever explains what part B is. Like, what do you, how do you actually win the game?
Can be literally anything, but these days it's usually Urza Saga is in the deck somewhere because it can get the key.
Mm,
It's like half of your combo, and then it also poops out these giant constructs.
right, the constructs come out, and then you can just
Yeah.
hit them. Like I was imagining before, it's like, oh well, Mishra's Factory or something, just Inkmoth Nexus, whatever, some random land just comes out and you just hit them until they die.
Yep. Urza Saga tends to hold that up these
Urza
days.
Saga is a pretty good card.
I love Urza Saga. I think it's genuinely a design masterpiece. It has enriched every format where it's legal, and that's coming from someone who plays a lot of Modern and Legacy, where this card is most prevalent. And like, I think it changed how we have to think about stuff, and some of the old tools don't work anymore. But there's new tools. Like I got to play Pernicious Deed this year at Eternal Weekend. I haven't registered that card in
Like
7-8
20 years.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm just so happy I got to play Pernicious Deed, and it was good because it kills Urza Saga and anything that came out of it.
Oh yeah, because you can just pop it for 0.
Yep.
Oh god, I love Pernicious Deed. That it's so much better than Ratchet Bomb. But god, Pernicious Deed, man, that's yeah, because you have to sit and actually think about like counters to Urza Saga or to the elementals or to but like I feel like Vintage and Legacy have been getting a little hammered by the side cards that have been coming out, Bowmasters, Eorlingus, uh Name Goblin. That
Yeah.
stupid card. But yeah, how did you find cEDH though?
Uh, it was actually so I'm a full-time content creator. I
Actually, let's
release
go back like 30 steps from there. And
okay.
so you started playing in Tempest. And when did you become, and you said you really picked up your competitive game like right before the pandemic and stuff and started winning things.
It was like 2016 when I stopped judging and started playing tournaments.
Why did you pick Legacy and Vintage as your jams? Like, what about those formats is it?
That was I made that decision around like 2008. So I graduated high school in 2006, and
Child.
yeah, child to you, old man to many of your listeners. That's how linear time works. We're all in it somewhere. But so I graduated high school in '06, and then in my early college years, I was like, free. I could do whatever I want. I live in the dorm. I don't have to tell my parents where I am at like uh, at the LGS until 2 a.m. traveling to PTQs on the weekend. Like I could do that now, and I realized that being a broke college kid trying to build a new standard deck to keep up with the PTQ metagame every week is a sucker's bet.
Mm,
I found myself selling off the deck I bought the week before, losing for 30 to 40% of the value of those cards to flip them into the deck I want to play this week. And it was just not sustainable.
hmm.
So at the time, there were some great content creators, Matt Elias, Adam Barnello. There was just a bunch of people writing about vintage and legacy, and I just decided one day, never having played a game, I'm a legacy guy now, and I just sort of traded my standard cards I had left into fetch lands and force of wills and
Hmm.
wastelands and those sort of things. And it's really just about convenience that sometimes you gotta like focus on school for 3 weeks and you can't keep up with standard and then your deck doesn't work anymore when you come back or it's not
God, I hate
competitive
that.
and uh, legacy changes but not that fast. I could
Yeah.
stop playing for a year and I bet Delver of Secrets, Wasteland, and Days are still going to be good when I come back. And it's really just about it was about convenience for me. And
Hmm.
so around 2008, 2009, I just sort of pivoted into these are the cards that I have now. And that's how I became an Eternal guy.
Yeah, that's kind of the same impetus that led me into Commander, which was like, hey, all those cards you own, you can still play. It's
Yep.
like they will still be good, and you can still play with all the crap cards you want in this format because nobody is particularly insistent on it being. I mean, mind you, this is 2011 when nobody was insistent on your cards being good. You could
Right.
play garbage trash. You could play your, Simic Sky Swallowers, and nobody would care. It's fine. Um, and yeah, like I just enjoy. I mean, but the thing is, Commander is just ever growing beast, and you need every card that's ever been printed to play it. Um, but I do like Eternal a lot. What deck did you start with?
I started with what is now known as Rug Delver, but
Hmm.
Delver of Secrets didn't exist yet. The deck was called Canadian Threshold at the
Excuse me. I
time.
think it's called Teamer Delver now.
Oh, right, right. Yes, you're actually right. Even the Rug moniker is dead now. Uh,
Yeah.
yes, what would now be called Teamer Delver, but it was before we had Delver of Secrets. The deck had Nimble Mongoose in it,
Wait, what is
Tarmogoyf.
Devil? What is Delver of Secrets without Delver of Secrets?
Well, it was called Canadian Threshold at the time. Nimble Mongoose, Werebear, Tarmogoyf. Those
Mm.
were the threats in the deck. I think I had one Vendilion Click was my spicy flex threat. Uh, yeah, Delver of Secrets wasn't printed until I think it was 2010, 2011,
Yep.
and I was started playing Legacy in '08. So there was a couple years there where Days, Wasteland, and one drops were still good. We just didn't have that one drop yet.
Yeah, it turns out Delver of Secrets is like one of those few cards that comes out and instantaneously becomes its own just archetype of deck in literally every format it possibly could
Yep,
immediately.
yep.
I hate that card, but it's also just I can't deny that it's one of the best cards ever printed.
It
It's
is
like Death
very
Knight
good
Shaman or
if you're
something.
willing to build your deck in a way that lets it be a 3/2 most of the time. That's
Huh? Blue players put building a deck that lets them put a bunch of like cantrips and draw spells into a thing to turn their random 1/1 trash into a 3/2 that also lets them look at the top of the library. Yeah, I
right.
guess.
Yeah, and that came just a couple years after Wild Nacatl that melted everyone's brain. It's like you could just have a 3/3 attacking on turn two
Like
in
what?
your zoo deck. Like zoo was a thing in Legacy for a while because
God,
of
I
Wild
miss those
Nacatl.
days. You remember
Yeah,
when Nicodle was banned in Modern?
yeah, I know.
Like what?
Insane.
It's like when they banned Curdape from like Type One back in the day. You're like, really? It's like, well, you're getting a 3/2 on turn one. It's like too good. It's like, I guess it is. Yeah, turning out.
I've seen some Type One play. I've seen some old school played, and when people actually figured out that Counterspell and Navinral's Disc and Icy Manipulator and like Moat are cards you're allowed to register. Curdape doesn't look very good anymore.
No, it really doesn't. Oh my god, dude! And then you remember that in old school, playing creatures is basically losing the game.
Yes,
Like you're just not gonna win ever because they can just spell blast all your crap and you're done. Anyways, do you play old school?
I don't. I'm vaguely aware of it, but uh,
Yeah.
at the time where old school was first forming, I didn't really like what they were about, because
Hmm.
it wasn't like we just want to play Worship and Dragon as our win con. It was you have to own an unlimited beta or alpha Shivan Dragon, or else
Right.
it's not old school. And that felt like gatekeeping and annoying for no
That's
reason.
exactly what it felt like
They've
to me.
chilled out a lot. It's a very different thing now, but I I have an old school deck. This is actually funny. I find this old school deck probably once a year just among my things. It's sleeved up. It's in my closet right now. I just tend to forget that I own it, and then once a year I'm like, "What's in this deck box?" And there there's a Chaos Orb in that deck. There's a set of Suchis in that
Oh my
deck.
god, Suchi.
Uh, like there's just a lot of dollar bills in weird cards just that I
Yeah.
don't need for any other deck, but they're sitting in that box, and I find them once a year, and I'm like, cool, I do have these things.
Yeah, seriously, like a friend of mine at GP Seattle some years ago, I was staying with a friend who doesn't play Magic, and he just let me crash at his house because we've been friends for a long time. And as I was leaving, he's like, "Oh yeah, the other day, my mom found these cards in my house, and I figured we don't care, you can have them." And it was literally 2 packs of Antiquities that he had opened and that had just been sitting in his house in like the box or something for 1,000 years. And I'm flipping through it and I'm just kind of like getting like kind of more tense and more tense as I'm going. I'm like, oh man, there's a Suchi and Urza's Miter and this. And I'm like, oh wow, this is all just really sweet. And then I get to the end and there's a candelabra
Oh no.
and I just squeaked and I like yelled so loud. I was in the elevator at the time. He sent me a text message like, I heard that. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I still keep it in my binder just because every now and then I like to flip through it and look at like Antiquities cards from Antiquities and be like, ah, that's
Yeah,
what
old
says it.
Magic cards do it for me.
Yeah, dude.
I'm an old school aesthetic type of gamer. Like I having been playing Legacy for 15, 16
Well,
years now,
yeah.
I have also kind of just sculpted my collection. Like over time, my M10 lightning bolts became foreign black border, then those became beta, and just like I do like the way old cards look. And I have to check myself sometimes where I'm just reading a conversation on social media or something, and I see like people who started Magic 6 years ago who have no nostalgic connection to that.
Right.
And they're like, you can't even read the text. White cards look the same as artifacts. Like these actively look bad. And I'm like, you know what? They're kind of right, but I'll never make this change. Like to
Yeah,
me, there
it's
is a
exactly
connection.
like here's what I will say. As somebody who started literally at the beginning, uh, I like and prefer old school frames for green, black, and blue cards. I do not like the red and the white cards from the old days because the white ones just are so washed out and the text is so hard to read, except for like some cards like Sarah Angel, which you will never peel from my hand. Like old school like Alpha Beta Sarah Angel is never going to happen.
Mhm.
But like red cards just look muddy and dumb. And I was like, if there was a way I could aesthetically get modern and old to kind of uh, and of course, now there's like the hipsters who are like, I need to have the pre M15 postmodern frames. Thank you. The ones that don't have the hollow sticker at the bottom or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, yeah. The holo sticker or like the legend swoop that
I
started with
like the Legend Crown a lot. I
yeah,
think that's
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I have some friends who actively hate that, and I think they're crazy for caring that much. Like, it is what it is, but,
I
certainly.
actually, I've gone through and I've replaced all of my commanders that I can with the ones that have the cool Legend Crown, just because I'm like, oh, that's actually sweet. I like that a lot. Like I was talking to Aaron Forsyth, and he's like, yeah, we had just planned to do it for Dominaria, for Dominaria, because it's like a Legend set, and everybody loved the way it looks. So we're like, what if we just did this? And it's like, oh, okay, let's just do it then. And it looks hot, and I like it a lot. Um, I don't know. I mean, I like Magic cards from all over Magic. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's whatever. I don't. I'm not that picky. Even if it's mix and match, it's fine. It's all cool. It's all they all look good. There are some cards that look bad, but that's not the fault of the frame. That's a fault of the card. Um,
Yeah, I actually had I don't wanna call it controversy, but sparked some debate. At Eternal Weekend, a friend of mine who is a big time collector, at one point, he was building a set of alpha, like, he's like a big, big collector,
mm,
and he handed me or he pulled out a beta mock sapphire from his deck and he was like, check it out, I upgraded my sapphire. And I was like, wow, that looks nice from across the table. And then he's like, no, check it out. And he pulled it out of its sleeve and out of its inner sleeve and handed me just the naked beta mock sapphire. And while I was holding this thing, I was like, this feels so dirty that I should make content out of it. And I pulled out my phone and made like a 5-second video uh, of just like the back of the card and my hand slowly flipping it over to the front. And then I dropped like Chameleonaires Riding Dirty over it and just titled it Magic Unsleeved. And I dropped it as a YouTube short. And it's gotten tens of thousands of views. And people are like, the people in the comments are like, yeah, nice proxy. Or that just looks like a sticker stuck onto a basic island. It doesn't even look like a magic card. And you know what? Look at a beta card. They look like a sticker stuck on a different card because that's the printing technology they had at the time. Beta cards all have that awful little white corner at each border.
A little dot
corner.
at the corners, yeah.
Yeah, they look bad because that's what we could do at the time. But
they look
to me, that's beautiful.
Exactly. I'm like, look, my pauper deck, and this is like the dumbest flex I've ever made in my life. My pauper deck is all elves, and all of my lawn awards in there are beta. Why? Because I had them, and because. But every time I play it, people are like, really? You blinked it. Like your lands are draft chaff mismatch garbage, but your elves are all like beta. And I'm like, look, dude. Yes.
Yeah, gotta respect the OG.
You know, it's like this is just the way I roll, and it's just how it is. What do you play in Eternal? Like, what are your decks?
I am known for blue control decks. My tagline, my catchphrase is Island Ponder Keep. I'll keep any hand of any number with an island and a ponder in it. Like I just have complete faith in Ponder to find whatever I need.
Okay, I'm going to stop you because I'm sorry, I'm having like an ADHD day, but I need to ask you a question that's deeply important. Ponder, Preordain, or Brainstorm?
Brainstorm is more powerful, but I like Ponder more.
Good answer.
Yep.
Like I think Ponder is what I would pick too.
I actually did a 20-minute video on my channel a couple years ago called Wizard School, where I just broke down like fundamental Eternal Magic concepts. And I did like 25 minutes just about Brainstorm, Ponder, Preordain. Which one is good for what things? When do you want which one? How do you use each one? That is content that I have created and put out in the world.
Well, it's an important question because like Brainstorm is really good if you have a fetch land and you can put things away to protect them from your hand or whatever. But if you don't, it might not be. You might just lock yourself out for 3 turns.
Yeah, Brainstorm can change more than one card in your hand, which no other cantrip can do. Like if you actually need to assemble A plus B and you currently have nothing, you can Brainstorm into A plus B. Ponder sees more cards because Brainstorm sees 3 cards. Preordain can see up to 3 cards. Ponder can see 4 cards if you look at the 3 then shuffle. And then Preordain sees up to 3 cards, but you get complete control over where they go. Like I don't like this one, I do like this one, I'll keep it. And the other one's gone. You don't need to build your own fetch land situation. So they all have their pros and cons. They're all,
and of
really
course, powerful. Ancestral is just like take 3 and deal with it.
Yeah, Ancestral Recall, whatever.
Yeah, it's like
I'll take them.
No choice. You get this and you like it. Yes, sir.
Yep. It does read force target player to draw 3 cards. That is the printed text.
I have
whether you like it or not. Here they come.
I have milled someone with an Ancestral Recall before. That's a really good feeling.
Oh yeah, Doomsday is a meta deck in Vintage, and Doomsday. When that spell resolves, you only have 5 cards left in your deck. You try to win with Thassa's Oracle with 0 cards in your deck. Ancestral, you're dead.
GG's.
Yeah.
Or Stifle. Stifling a Thassa's Oracle feels so good.
I top 8'd Eternal Weekend 1 year with Nimble Obstructionist in my deck.
Yeah. That card is a pain in the ass.
Stifle Bird.
Okay, so we got lost in sauce, and it's entirely my fault. But how did you find Commander and then cEDH from there?
Commander I found because I was a judge. I was in the like second wave outside of Sheldon's friend group. It was then disseminated among judges from Sheldon himself back in the day. I'm not claiming to have been close with Sheldon or friends with the RC or anything.
Part of like the second generation. I mean, I'm close with Sheldon and friends.
Right. Yeah. Like I know like now that he's passed, there was like a lot of outpouring, and some people felt a certain way of like people claiming a closeness to Sheldon that they may not have had. But I'm not saying I was friends with Sheldon, but we knew each other.
Sure.
But like I have played EDH just on a lunch break judging a tournament with Sheldon. I've played EDH after we pack up for the day with Toby, just in the early days where we were
That
the
was
people who knew what EDH was,
yeah,
and
seriously.
it was simple. And so this is probably like '09, '08, up to like 2010. And I actually,
Pre-precon days, man.
yeah, before precons even existed. And I sold out of EDH around 2012 to pay for grad school,
Mm.
and then just found my way back to casual EDH during the COVID lockdown, basically. I was just at home, needed a project, and I actually had to play standard for some invitational tournament, local invitational tournament, and I played the Jund Sacrifice deck with Corvold in it.
Oh god, I love that deck so much.
Right. And playing Corvold in standard, I was like, this might get me back into EDH. And
Yeah.
that is the commander I built during the pandemic, when I just needed something to do at home. It was big Corvold.
I love that deck. I started building a Corval Jund deck, and I need to redo it because it's bad. It was just ended up being just Corval plus a bunch of like, I grabbed, there was a Jund precon that had been released in like 2011, 2013, or something like that. And I just took that shell and then stuck Corval on the front and put like Cat Oven in there. And I was like, this is not a deck. I need to do better than this. But I need to rebuild because Corval is, I need an end of the day deck, and Corval is a good end of the day deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like Corvold. I like the play patterns and all the moving pieces of Corvold.
Yeah.
He is one of those commanders where everyone's like, "Oh, great! Here comes the casual Corvold deck, whatever that means." It's like, my deck sucks. It just has a lot of sacrifice synergies in it.
Yeah, seriously. He goes around in circles, and then you Swords of Plowshare as my commander, and that's the end of the story.
Yep, I think I've won like sub 5% of games where I've played my Corvold deck, but I just have fun throwing my permanents into the graveyard, drawing cards, seeing what happens, and having a big dragon sometimes.
I just really wanted to play Cat Oven. I love Cat
Yeah,
Oven.
that's fair.
It's so much fun.
I like a Bloodghast more than just about anything. Just give me
Bloodghast is a good
something to
time.
do with a Bloodghast, and I'm pretty stoked.
That's fair. That's a fair place to be. Where did you find cEDH then?
So, circling back to that, I'm a full-time content creator. My model is my Patreon subscribers give me decks to play, and one of my Patreon subscribers, Akia, one day was just like, "Have you considered cEDH? It's kind of like Vintage and Legacy." And I said, "No, I have not." And he gave me mono white Teshar Krark
Okay.
Clan Ironworks combo.
Mm.
And I was just like, fine, I'll get some friends together, I'll play this. And I got Jarvis Yu, legacy gamer
Oh.
extraordinaire. He played, I think, Nigila in that pod. And then I got two cEDH experts. And then Nathan, the Hermit Druid, did commentary. He was like a fifth person just hanging out with the four of us. So I just like put it out on Twitter, ended up with a Rockstar pod, and
Yeah, geez.
kind of just one thing led to another. And then the world opened up from COVID enough to start playing Magic tournaments. And I showed up to a cEDH tournament and I won it. Then I showed up to another cEDH tournament and I won that one. And just sort of this legend was born. It's normalized out since then. I have finished dead last in 2 cEDH tournaments over the last year, so we're back to even. But
Well,
it
yeah,
was
now
an
it's like
explosion
Ian's
onto the scene.
yeah, Ian's the one who's winning all the tournaments now, right? Like, it's just kind of pretty crazy.
Ian was in my top 4 when I won my first tournament. He was there too. Like, Ian's been there the whole time. Ian is probably the best dedicated cEDH player. There are a lot of strong players who play cEDH too, like myself, like Matt Sperling.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people in that space. Ian is definitely the top of the heap as far as dedicated to exactly that format.
Specifically cEDH players.
Yep.
So I want to ask you a question that's actually useful. What would you say you've learned from playing Eternal that you've been able to transfer into cEDH style play?
Kind of like high power, what could happen to me here and what can I do about it, both abstractly and specifically. Being able to decide what matters when every card is really good, because you only get one Force of Will in your deck.
Right.
You could play other counters, but if you have Force of Will and a blue card and you have to get through 3 people's turns, And you'd also like to use Force of Will to defend your own combo on your turn. When your opponent's like, turn 1 Kinnan, do I Force of Will that? Or is Kinnan not going to do anything till next turn and we can figure it out then? Or turn 1 Crom, like the big 4/4 beat stick, gotta draw cards. Turn 1 Ristic Study, like, do I Force of Will that now? Or do I try to convince the table to pay the 1 and we can all ignore this together and I get to keep my Force of Will? But kind of understanding what is worth my coveted pivotal piece of interaction in a game where every single card is good. I think that's the skill I've brought from Eternal the most.
That's a very important skill because, like, every time I've sat and watched real full cEDH games, and I've done it quite a bit, is I've learned that paying attention to the other 3 players is only half of the journey. The other half is being able to evaluate and stack rank what is important and what isn't important, and trying to figure out, like, can I get them to counter this? Is just as important as can I just counter it myself? Like, and watching Sperling, for instance, navigate a table and sit there and say, like, look, he's got the win that he just tutored to the top of his deck. What are you going to do about it? Because I know you've got this card in your hand. And just watching this kind of like shenanigan manipulation stuff going on is like, it is high level and very intricate play. And that's, I think, part of the reason I bounce off it is just because I don't have the patience. Like, you need to have a lot of patience to play cEDH, to sit there and actually be like always focused, paying attention, and seeing what 3 other people and holding that state in your head. It's very hard to do that.
It is,
especially
yeah.
in a tournament.
Yeah, just kind of like the vectors the game exists on. Because in 1v1, I have a turn where I can cast any spell and you can cast instance. Then you have a turn where the inverse is true. But then in cEDH, I have a turn where 3 people can cast instance. And then each of them get a turn. It goes from like 4 vectors to 16 that you have to think about at all times.
Yeah.
Like it's a
and you've
lot.
still only got the 7 cards in your hand, man. So
Exactly. Yeah, you got to find every drop of value out of every card. You have to be able to either let someone make a mistake if it benefits you, or convince them not to make that mistake if it hurts you. And there's a lot to manage. And I understand the people who we mentioned earlier, the 60 card players who are like, why would I ever want to do that? Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Or I like that a lot. I think something that I brought to cEDH and succeeded at early is you see a lot of people kind of huffing, puffing, sometimes even yelling, sometimes just looking sad when somebody's making a play that they don't want it made, where I brought this kind of I describe an irrefutable fact about the game and I present you with an option to do something about it. Whereas it's not like, that's bad, this is going to kill us. I could explain with things that everyone could see why this was bad or why it would kill us, and hand you the decision, which was just it's the soft skills. You need a lot of interpersonal skills, and my professional history is in crisis management and crisis management training. So like, sometimes you just need to get a highly escalated person to just chill out and do what you want instead of what they wanted to do 5 minutes ago. And like that is in my skill set and appeals highly to me in a game of cEDH.
Whoa, that's a very clever way of thinking about it. The idea of looking at a game as crisis management, as in like, these people's tensions are rising, these people are looking to do dumb things with their cards, and your job is to bring the temperature down and encourage them to really reconsider what they want to do, eventually getting to the thing you want them to do, but in a way that makes them feel like they did it. And wow, what did you do in school?
In school, I studied special ed. I have a master's of education in curriculum and instruction, and I was a certified behavior analyst for a while. I no longer have that cert because you don't need it when you're a Magic the Gathering YouTuber. But I worked in the deep end of special ed that a lot of people don't know exists. When a school can't serve someone at all, that person gets sent somewhere. And I worked in the place where they were sent. So our
Wow.
school it was made up of 200 kids who would have been the most difficult kid in your school. And they were sent there from 50 or 60 different districts.
Oh
And
my goodness.
it just like, imagine the most challenging person who was in your school and imagine someone more challenging than that. And then imagine 200 of them in one room or not one room, but one building. And I was in charge of safety and crisis management and educating those people. Uh, so,
I mean, that's a heroic job, man. Somebody has to someone has to care for these kids. These are still people in our society. These are still kids who need help. And it takes a very level person to be able to handle that and to be able to help these children manage their way through a very chaotic life. They don't want to be losing their minds every second. They would like things to be calm too.
yep. And the
Damn.
big secret to that whole field is that 99% of my job was convincing the people around those kids to get them what they need. Like you can't tell a person with profound disab- intellectual
Like
disability to calm down
yeah,
or chill or hey, it's not a big deal. You can teach the adults around them to respond appropriately and effectively to the way that that child communicates.
right.
So, uh, everybody's, I genuinely believe in life, everybody's doing the best with what they got. And if that kid is doing the best with what they got, and you, their parent, is not doing the best with what you got, I would like to teach you a better way to, so you got something new that you
Hmm.
and your kid can work jive better with and have a safer home life where that kid it doesn't need to be in crisis because they're getting what they need. And like
Hmm.
that was my job for a very long time.
Wow. I That's impressive, man. Because that's a sort of just underappreciated heroic task that is very needed and not very well managed by our by really the world. The world does not do a good job with that. Um,
No, it's bad. Yeah.
okay, I realize we're over time, but I don't care. How did you go from that to magic content YouTubing?
Accidentally, I just sort of started streaming on Twitch when the Richard Garfield game Artifact was about to come out.
Mm,
I thought this game is going to be cool. They had already announced like $1 million pro tour for it,
mm,
and I wanted to be ground zero on a new game, a digital game, and maybe I could be like one of these people who's like was like on the ground for Hearthstone and be
mm.
like a face and voice of a game.
That's
And
cool.
that game died in like 3 weeks. It
Yeah.
turned out uh, nobody liked it. I liked it, but uh, so in development of that game, the playtesters kept telling Richard Garfield, "I like this game, but I don't think anyone else will."
Oh
And
God.
everybody told him that, and he said, "If everybody says they like it, but nobody else will, then there's something in the sauce here that's worth." And it turned out they were right. The average consumer of who would like log into Steam and try a new game hated Artifact. You had to be
Mm,
an invested gamer who understands some level of game design and like why things need to be how they are. The game died basically immediately, and but I had this Twitch page now, and uh, then after a while, I realized Twitch wasn't for me and just started throwing videos on YouTube. And then during the pandemic, I was working at that uh, private school for the kids with special needs. That
mhm,
school shut down. Those kids cannot be educated remotely, so I just had nothing to do and nowhere to be while
mm.
collecting my full salary because they couldn't furlough me because they knew I wouldn't come back and they
Jeez.
need me. There was like an 8 month period where I was just getting paid my full salary to be at my house with nothing to do. And I just started releasing 7 videos a week on YouTube
Oh my
and
God.
off we went. I slowed down from that pace in the interim, and then I switched from school based to home based services, where instead of being at the school 40 hours a week, I was just in people's homes for like 20 hours. So that
Mm.
made more time for YouTube. And then after a year of that, I was like, YouTube is just better and makes financial sense, makes happiness sense, and just sort of stumbled and bumbled my way into being an online content creator.
That's amazing. That's insane, dude. And also, that's very prolific. That is an absurd amount of videos a week. Do you edit them yourself?
Editing is a generous term for what I do. I have a machine that cuts the dead air out of my Magic Online recordings, and there I might go in there and do something by hand if something particularly weird happens. But I usually have edited the first match of my game while I'm queued up for the second match of my game, and I'm out of there in no time.
God, did I even introduce you at the beginning of the show?
Probably not.
Probably
We
not.
jumped
Yeah,
right in. Yeah.
yeah. We went in real hard. This is BoshNRoll, Brian Coval, very very good player. I'm not going to pace this in the beginning. You guys are an hour and 7 minutes. You're going to learn who my guest is now.
Yeah. Thanks for making it this far.
Yeah, no, but this is delightful though. It's like, God, I wish I had asked that question early on because that's such a fascinating topic and idea. But what do you actually do in your content though? Because
I
you like, yeah.
Yeah, I play on Magic Online, and it's kind of retro content in terms of this is kind of what people were putting out in 2010. And if you look at like Command Zone or Playing with Power and the type of smooth edited content and stuff that they make, what I'm doing is really rudimentary. But what I have that nobody else does is a decade of teaching. And there are players who are very good but can't explain what they're doing, and then there's players with a
Yes.
lot of personality who aren't very good. And I think what I offer is both. And like I'm not as good as Reed Duke, but I'm much better at explaining what I'm doing than Reed Duke is.
You know, Reed Duke is one of my favorite players of all time. However, watching his streams is one of the hardest things in the world because there's like 12 minutes of silence while he sits in tanks. And it's like, Reed, please tell me what you're thinking so that I know what's going on. Whereas, like, nobody can do what LSV does, which is both be the best in the world at explaining and at playing.
Mhm.
And, like, I am very good at talking my way through things, and I'm very mediocre at play, so nobody's going to actually want to watch me. So it's a challenge to be like in that kind of quadrant that's actually useful.
Right. And I play a Magic Online League, which is 5 rounds with a different deck every weekday. 10 a.m. Eastern, they come out. And today I released Modern Shamans, just rule Shamans. Yesterday it was oh god, I already forget. This is how quick I go through them. I released like Legacy Esper Legends this week. Tomorrow I have the One Ring Doomsday coming out. Yeah, like I'm just all over the place, just from Gruul Beatdown to One Ring Doomsday combo. I just play a different deck every day, 5 rounds. I talk through what I'm thinking when I play. I try to be a goofball, have some fun with it as well. And I put out like a feature film's worth of content 5 days a week. It's
That's
usually
fun.
like 60 to 120 minutes of Magic gameplay.
That's fun. And where can people find you if they wanted to find this stuff?
BoshNRoll on YouTube. And
Cool.
that's my primary platform. And if you want to find me anywhere else, my link tree is in any video description on YouTube.
Awesome. And as always, my friends, you can find me at Gearpuri Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. every Tuesday, or at YouTube every Tuesday, thanks to my editor, Dan May, because I don't know how to cut silences and have a machine do all this stuff. You can also find me on other podcasts in the Shivam Podcast Network, i.e. Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic or the Chronicles of Dragonlance. You can also find me on Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And remember, my friends, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.